Welcome to De-Stress Your Business, the podcast where we show you how to get incredible results in your business without constant stress. I'm Alexis Kingsbury, a serial entrepreneur and founder at Air Manual. I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host, Paddy Mann. Paddy, good morning.
Good morning.
So, what are we going to be covering today, Paddy?
So the big topic that I want to cover today, and it comes after our discussion yesterday. So yesterday we were talking about issues, how to deal with them when they come up in your business, how to make sure you permanently fix them and manage that. I want to take a slightly different angle today and discuss about what happens when you've got an issue and it leads to you being frustrated with a colleague. It's really, really common. And again, I know this is something that I experience myself frequently. I know that other people experience it in the team and about myself from time to time. I know that my wife will bring home frustrations with colleagues. I know that it's a thing that will be discussed, with friends and family after work. Those pain points where there's an issue, where someone's doing something which is annoying. And I want to talk about a way that we try always to think about that type of issue. And that is this fundamental ethos, which is it's a process issue, not a people issue.
Yep. Yeah, I love.
Before we go into what I mean by that, perhaps let's just share some kind of frustrations that we have. Let's share some frustrations we have with colleagues. We're going to glass our wine out and let's go. Alexis, chuck a few out there.
Yeah, so most common frustrations that I've either had, or I'll give myself a get out of jail free card by saying, or have seen other business owners have, is tends to be frustrations like the kind of dropped balls. Where you agree, like you feel like you've agreed that something's going to be done in a particular way, and then it's not in future, or you feel like that there were some fundamental steps that needed to be done as part of some activity, process, responsibility you've handed over, and then later on you kind of just see, oh, they were just completely missed, and that's really frustrating because then you feel like, well, what's the point in giving it to you, because now I have to spend as much time as it would have taken to do it myself, but now I have to fix it and then tell you again and do all that kind of stuff. I think that'd be one of the first ones that comes to mind. What about for you? This is
yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to give an example, which is right here present.
No.
I am currently pissed off with Alexis, and it's not like I'm really, really pissed off. I'm smiling at him. He's now looking worried. But there's something that frustrated me literally just before we started the episode. And in my mind, what's happened is I've said, okay, every time we're going to start this episode at a certain time, and we're going to be there 5 minutes early so we can go live at a specific time. And Alexis is turning up at the time that we're meant to go live, and I'm going, oh, that's so annoying. And it really, even though it shouldn't, even so it's quite minor, it's that kind of thing which really gripes on you. And the way that you tend to deal with this when this kind of issue comes up, and most people handle it, is you take that frustration, you bottle it up, and you vent it to friends and family. You take it down to the
or live on a LinkedIn Live,
or you share it live and put him on the spot and make the world aware of his shortcomings at turning up at the time that I said was really important. But of course, it's minor, and there's going to be many different reasons why this is happening. It could be, I know Alexis has to drop his kids off at school before he has the podcast. So it could be it simply isn't possible for him to arrive at the time I said. It's quite likely that he's misunderstood the time that I've specified and is simply turning up at the point that he thinks he's meant to turn up. There's 20 different reasons, but I have two options here. I have an option to be annoyed, which is kind of entertaining. It kind of makes me feel self-important. I have something to talk about with the wife, or I can go, wait a minute, there's a process issue. And so we can go back to what we were talking about yesterday about how to manage issues and make sure they get dealt with in a timely fashion. I've literally, before this podcast, added an issue to the Air Manual issue tracker, which is starting time 9:25 or 9:30 question mark, and that's enough to remind me on the call later or when we talk about it is that there's something that's causing me a little gripe. We'll talk about it, and there may be, well, there could be multiple outcomes. It could be that we go, yeah, Paddy, you're right. We should be starting at the time you thought. It could be that Alexis makes a good case and we have to start at the time that he's turning up. It could be that we uncover that it's not ideal where it is at the moment and we need to think about another time in the day. But the point being here, Alexis is causing this conflict, this pain, this frustration, and it's nothing to do with him. It's a process issue. It's a communication issue, and it's something that's really easy to resolve. I'll throw out some more examples. So that's a really kind of minor little gripe, and it was unlikely to ever lead to a long-lasting feud. But
yeah,
other examples,
just before we go on to other examples, because I actually
a chance to defend yourself.
Well, indeed, but and also not going to, don't need to. But I really like that as an example because I think it highlights that it doesn't have to be major things, and also like in the scheme of things, like it's not like major mistakes being made in supporting customers, or or updating a website, updating your product to your website, or whatever, so the whole thing goes down. Like things that have material direct impacts, and yet the frustration, whether it's for the business owner or for other team members, can feel very significant. And I think, as you say, like tackling it as a process issue, like whether it's okay, well, we need to block in time in the diary so that, for example, a call doesn't get arranged just before this, which is what happened, so that kind of thing doesn't happen. And so it's about identifying, I think, as you say, treating it as a process issue. What could be in place to prevent that issue happening in future? And I think when you embrace that principle, it's actually quite empowering for, obviously, both the team and the individual that might be otherwise causing you frustration, but also for you as the leader, as the manager. The number of times I've found where I feel that frustration at a team member, but then as soon as you go, well, actually, this is just a process issue, it's so much easier to fix. Like, rather than thinking, oh, Janet, I need to go and have a conversation with her and remind her that she needs to do this step in the process. Instead, it's, okay, how do we make it so that it's more difficult to make that mistake, or that that's not a thing that she has to remember. It's something that goes in. So I think it's a great illustration. Give us another example of perhaps one from the past, or one that you've seen other business leaders deal with. What are the sorts of things that tend to be frustrating, and how's it then been dealt with?
All right, I'll bring one which feels a bit more kind of fundamental. It's the moment where you're starting to question whether someone's able to do their job, because that's really frustrating when you've got a member on the team and you're looking at them and you're just going, you're responsible for this area, and it might be doing development or doing sales demo calls, and you are dropping balls, and the time that it takes for us to support you and work around this mess is it's so painful that it's kind of, it throws so much into question. It's causing me pain. I'm frustrated. You're becoming a bottleneck for the rest of the team, so you have to wait hours. You're not responding quickly when I need you to, and the mistakes that are happening, they could be costing us business. They could be, all sorts of little kind of like a domino of pain points that come spiraling across the business and the individuals that are working with that person, and that's a much bigger challenge to be looking at than someone turning up to a meeting. And it's like, so how do you do that? Surely the easy answer is you get frustrated with that person and you start going, this person might not be up to their job, or everyone holds that thought at the back of their head, and it may include their manager and leadership, and it may include their colleagues, but that's the easy answer. But of course, as per the episode theme, we think there's a better option there.
Yeah, and I think before we go into that better option, like taking that example, and that's an example that I have both dealt with within our businesses, but also have seen a lot of business leaders particularly struggle with the one around those salespeople. Like, oh, my salespeople aren't following up effectively, or they aren't doing things on the sales calls in the way that they should, and as a result, conversion rates aren't as high. We spend a load of money on the marketing and generating these leads, and then one or two of my salespeople just aren't converting. And I think that is definitely an area where the temptation is to go, I just need better salespeople. And so they go out thinking, I'll just find a better salesperson, and either actually or plan and think about firing those that aren't up to speed and aren't delivering the results. But my experience has been that it's a lot less to do with the person and their skills and knowledge and experience that they bring into the business, and more about the tools that you give them once they're there. The clarity on what are the right questions to be asking, for example, in the sales discussion. What are the most common objections that people would have, and how do you overcome them? How do you do that both on the call, but then how do you do that in the follow-up? And providing the salespeople with that makes it more likely that they get the results. But and so as a result, which becomes a process issue, is how do you make sure that you've provided them with that as part of their onboarding, as part of their training, and or at the point that they're conducting those calls. But also the one of the frustrations is for business owners is they go, right, this salesperson's been in the business 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and I'm not happy with their performance over the last X months. So it's like they might have been in the business 3 years, but it's like, but their performance. I've now looked at their numbers and I've spotted that for the last year their conversion rates have been rubbish. And that again, like initially that shows up as frustration with the person. It's, oh damn it, that why can't Bruce be better? And why is Bruce doing such a bad job recently? He's going to bring my business down. And of course, in reality, like if you use the same principle, it's a process issue, not a people issue, or at least use that as the default. It gives you a different starting point, because suddenly you say, well, why has it taken me 6 months or a year to even spot that? Where's my process for reviewing that? Where's my process for identifying that performance isn't where it should be and going backwards through the chain to work out where that issue is? Where's my process for identifying whether is this just an issue for Bruce, or is this across the rest of the sales team? Is it because we've changed our pricing or changed our offer, or there's a new competitor out there, or is it because marketing leads are different? And it's that when you empower yourself and the team with that angle, suddenly you create a business where actually you don't rely on people just magically bringing their A game all the time and suddenly giving you results. Instead, you've got a much more provable, consistent way of delivering that. So I love that as an example. We've talked about a few examples, and feel free to chuck in another one. But when we talk about approach it as a process issue, like what's the better approach? You said that the easy answer is blame the person and either just get frustrated at them or actively plot to remove them or whatever. What's the approach that you'd expect to go through to actually handle this as a process issue on the people issue?
Well, a good question. I guess we've kind of alluded to some of the steps that we can do, but let's take it back from the start. So step number one, you identify in your mind that there is an issue. You're feeling this niggle, and the second that you are starting to vent to someone or just wound up, try and work out what that is. And it's going to go, oh man, Alexis, where is he? At that point in time, you want to capture the issue. It's as we talked about yesterday, Ray Dalio in his hedge fund, they have a frustration button just to capture that moment in time, because there's something causing frustration. There's something which is causing a gripe. It's holding back the business. It's causing things not to work as they should do. And if you capture it, you can deal with it. So in this case, I went straight to the exec issue tracker, added a point. Didn't need a detail. I didn't need to put the answer in. I didn't need to put my hypotheses of exactly why Alexis hadn't turned up. I didn't need a historical record.
I'm going to start bringing in my own frustrations, Paddy. You're going
Oh, no. Next week we'll try it with spreadsheets. No, it is simply just something to remind me to bring up that discussion. Yeah. And I tell you what, for the theme of de-stress your business, that moment when you capture it is... It's just, weight just goes off, because up to that point I'm frustrated, I'm vented, I don't have a solution, and one of the biggest sources of stress is worrying about our relationships with other people and about confrontation. And I've captured it in a way that I know isn't going to cause harm. It's on the list, but even if it was still going to be something that was going to be an uncomfortable conversation, it's there, and I know it's going to be dealt with, and I can now forget about it until we have that discussion. So capture it, and in so many cases, just the fact that it's done, and particularly when the team has experienced this a few times, so they know what to expect too, then that is a huge de-stressor. Then what we're going to do later is we'll be talking about that issue. And the second, huge de-stressor is that I'm going to present that as, this is what's happening, this is what I'm experiencing, and Alexis, what's your side of the story? And instead of saying, we've got an issue, Alexis is always turning up late, Alexis, how are you going to fix it? I'm saying, Alexis, the system's not working for some reason. Yeah. I'm taking responsibility because I'm owning the podcast and marketing. It's not your, maybe there's a misunderstanding, maybe it's something, but it's currently, at this moment in time, it's my responsibility, my problem, not Alexis's. And I want to work with him to solve it. And by presenting it in that way, it bulldozes through the potential conflict, because Alexis will go, yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating. I misunderstood, or I've got other things which makes it hard, and we'll work through to a solution. And even if you occasionally even if Alexis is surprised the first time, whatever, by having that way that we manage the issue on the call, we make sure that you work it through till you got an answer. It's very, very rare that we'll have a heated discussion. Sometimes we will, but you work it through to the answer on the meeting, and then it's dealt with. So, yeah, number one, work out there's a pain point. Number two, capture it. That will remove the stress of worrying about it the whole time. Number three, discuss it on the meeting, presenting it that you, the leader, the manager, that it's your responsibility, your challenge, your issue, which you are sharing with them.
Yeah.
And then get their viewpoint and work out the resolution. And that's it. And that resolution, as we talked about earlier, sometimes it's a minor tweak. Sometimes it's just a misunderstanding. Sometimes it's the specific checklist, or the process. So Alexis's get to podcast on time checklist just needs to be updated so that it tells them the right time. Sometimes it's a bigger change to your day, so maybe he has to restructure his meetings to make things work. Sometimes it's a training or an onboarding issue that he wasn't made aware of expectations early on, and we can put that into onboarding for future so that everyone else is aware of what's expected. Sometimes it's a coaching issue. Sometimes it's that we're not tracking things every day, so it needs to be updated on a dashboard, or that the support and feedback loops aren't working, and so that we need to make sure that the one-to-ones with his manager are working, and so on and so forth. The solution and so on, you have to dig deep to really work out what could be improved with the system, with the business, to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah,
but that's how you work through it.
No, I love that, and I think one of the challenges, because I think the starting point is exactly as you say, where often you can tackle it kind of head on with that person, whether it's through a one-to-one meeting with them or whatever, or perhaps it's a more general issue that affects multiple people, in which case perhaps it gets pulled up at a team meeting. Note that sometimes the individual may not have the answer. Right. So, for example, in the case where you've got a frustration that why isn't this particular salesperson or group of salespeople achieving great results, or the results I was getting as the business owner or whatever when I was doing sales, and they may not have the answer, right? Like, how do you get better conversions? They probably don't know. They may have some ideas. There might be things that they feel are holding them back, whether it's, not being able to offer the discounts or the offers that the business owner was doing before, and suddenly the salespeople aren't allowed to do that, and so on. But sometimes then they're not able to come with the answer. And I think the point you make around, so it might be that you have to go back to the training and the onboarding. For example, it might be that you look at, okay, what's the difference between my top performing salespeople and my bottom performing salespeople? What are they doing differently? And it might be that they're asking different questions, or they spend more time focusing on the customer's pain points, right, rather than jumping in solution. Or maybe they are much clearer on coming to the next steps. And of course, the temptation is to say, well, why can't my salespeople just be better at asking those questions or whatever? Whereas instead, if you'd say, well, why haven't all of my salespeople got that understanding and that skills and so on. And it might be because you're not even, at no point do you say that's important and tell them how to do it. Or it might be that you do, but you don't give enough opportunity to role play it and practice it and close the gaps. And so often I think that, as you say, like going back to that training, that onboarding and so on can be a really good place to address it. What in terms of this approach, you can see that when you do this, it means that it reduces, as you described, it reduces the frustration. It means that you've got kind of instant weight off. It means that you can move towards a resolution faster, and you can continuously improve with the team. What if it really is a people issue? What if you're finding that you've tried to improve the process, or indeed, let's say that you've got a checklist for, let's say it's for salespeople sending out invoices to the customers once they've agreed, right, and doing the contract bit and sending out the invoice, and there's particular steps that are written in the documentation and that are really, really important, like, I don't know, setting the tax right or double checking the numbers or whatever, and you've kind of gone through the process of, okay, how do we make sure that this actually gets done? And so maybe with the team, you've agreed, we're going to put this in red to make sure it's really important. What if you have got one member of the team who just rushes stuff? They don't refer to the documents, or when they do, they kind of don't follow through with enough detail. They just kind of skip stuff. They assume that they know the answer. And so as a result, they are regularly making mistakes that's costing you loads of money, costing you loads of time, and they just do it. And every time that you bring it back to them and discuss like how important it is and so on, in theory, they agree, but in practice, they then don't do it. And you've had that conversation perhaps a few times. What then? Like, what would then you say is the approach?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question, because I bet there's people listening to the early part of the episode and going, yeah, what if I try this and it's still them? Because my hunch is this person sucks. Come on, we probably need to move on. I'd say the important thing is that your default starting point is that it's a process issue, not a people issue. After going that it's a process issue, the next thing is to look at, and assuming that you are holding them, you're delving into that issue and holding your team accountable, like you're continuing to review those issues and check it. So you're going, is this happening? It becomes a performance issue, and with we go into the world of performance management and making sure that your team are getting timely conversations and feedback and coaching from their typically from their direct manager. We highly recommend that this is a weekly meeting because the timeliness is so important. And so you'd want to be making sure that pain point is identified, turning it into making it clear that both you as a manager and they understand the pain and the impact, and then looking at what is the new behaviors that we want to see the employee demonstrating to show that they're able and capable to do their job and move forward. Now, of course, they need to understand at that point the seriousness and the fact that they are being course corrected and supported, but it should be very much a coaching atmosphere. It's something that it's still part of your system, your business. The way that you deal with issues of this nature is that you give them the coaching and help them course correct. And I tell you what, in our experience, when that works, when that happens, and you have that kind of course correction, we're actually incredibly surprised just how often it works. It really does, because by the time it gets to that point, you feel like you've already expressed to them the pain, and then you really put the focus on it, and you support them on the week to weeks, and they understand, and it's like you're having this conversation and saying, look, the one thing that I need to see from you next week is an improvement in this area. And you agree a change in their behavior, which you'll be looking for in the following week. And over time, fingers crossed, and I would say for with the people that we've hired, that's happened more often than not, you'll start to see an improvement. If you still don't, then again, your performance management processes come into play. And so what you're looking for is to have regular and timely performance reviews so that you're able to capture it in a systemized way. The big kind of theme in HR a decade ago and Some are still catching up. It used to be a kind of an annual performance review. That's
For most businesses,
frankly useless. Yeah. It needs to be more frequent than that, probably quarterly, so that you're able to give that intervention where you kind of basically give them a scorecard and go, you are currently off where we need you to be. You understand why, because you've been getting this feedback on this weekly loop. And if needed, you then have a performance improvement plan.
And I think we'll have to do a separate episode where we go deep into that process, because I think for a lot of businesses, they either don't have any performance review cycle or effective process in place, or they do, but it's a tick box exercise and not really seen as something valuable for either party. And yet, our experience of when it's done well is it's really useful to the manager, the business leader, or whatever, because it ultimately gives you a way in which you can either support people improving their performance, B, give people recognition for great performance and help them identify where they're going to develop and improve them further, or C, unfortunately, manage them out of the business. But also, we've seen that it's hugely valuable to the employee themselves as well, and often people come out of performance reviews in our businesses and highlight as one of their wins as part of the daily huddle, in which they say, oh yeah, this was great and gave me some focus and so on. So we'll have to cover that in a separate episode. But I think to zoom it back out to, so as a result, we're essentially saying the default position should be that it's a process issue, not a people issue. And the reason for doing that is because A, that's a lot easier to solve, but B, because that's most often the case. In general, people are not, trying to maliciously destroy your life and business from the inside. Most people are trying to do a good job, but it's not always easy or clear how to do so. And so by tackling those issues, managing them through an issue management process, as we've discussed in a previous episode, you can get better results. And if you've then repeated that several times over and you get to a point where someone's just not towing the line, then you can follow a performance management process to get them out. So love that. Thank you, Paddy. Anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, I think you nailed it as a summary. Yeah, 99% of your issues, it's going to be a process issue. It's not a people issue. And we'll come on to performance issues another day. But frankly, you don't need to go near that for almost all of the issues that will be coming up in your business day to day. Fantastic.
Love it. And I think this is such an area of powerful leverage that you can have over reducing the stress in the business. Regular listeners to this podcast and live will know that we run a weekly webinar, and I'll be running it next on the coming Wednesday at 1 p.m. UK time on how to free up 15 hours a week, remove the constant stress of running a business, and do all of that without slowing down growth. In fact, I'll show you how to unlock growth. So do join us during that webinar. You can find out more and register at www.airmanual.co/webinar. Until next time, have fun.
Have fun.